Hello, my name is Nikki Piscavages, and I decided to write about JavaScript for my final presentation. So what exactly is JavaScript? JavaScript is a client-side programming language. JavaScript runs on a browser, not a server. It provides interactivity. Examples of this are interactive forms, links, real-time content updates, interactive maps, 2D and 3D animation and graphics, and scrolling video jukeboxes, among other things. JavaScript is meant to be embedded directly onto web pages. You can write the JavaScript code, or you can copy code you saw on other web pages into your page to create forms, animations, or improvements. What are the benefits of JavaScript? Having the ability to implement complex features on web pages. Speed is increased because it is run on a browser instead of a server. It is very simple to learn. It's a very popular programming language. It has profound interoperability among other programming languages and applications. JavaScript reduces the demand on website servers. In other words, the server load. It has the ability to create 8 outstanding interfaces, and it is both a front end and back-end web development stack. So what exactly is a front-end and back-end web development stack? Front-end is considered client-side and consists of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript user interface. It is used to focus on the visual elements of a website or app. Back-end is considered server-side and consists of PHP, ASP.NET, Java, Node.js, and Python. It is used to focus on the side of a website that users cannot see. So what is full stack web development? A full stack developer works with both the front end, client side, and the back end, server side of the web development. They also work on the database and debugging of a website. Full stack web developers have mastered HTML and CSS and know how to program a browser, program a server, and program a database. So a full stack web developer, if you look at the picture, would be able to use all of these different types of technologies. So why is JavaScript so popular? If we take a look at the graph, we see that JavaScript is at the top. It is used the most as of early 2019. For 7 years, JavaScript has been ranked the most commonly used programming language. JavaScript is used to build 95.2% or 1.52 billion of websites today. Common websites that use JavaScript include Facebook, YouTube, Google Maps, and eBay. Brief history of JavaScript, the birth of JavaScript. In September 1995, a programmer working for Netscape by the name of Brandon Each created a new scripting language that we know today as JavaScript. This feat only took him 10 days to complete. He originally named the program Mocha, but it was released under the name LiveScript. The name was changed to JavaScript in December 1995. Brandon's intention was to create a programming language meant to be embedded directly into web pages. JavaScript was not always the power horse it is today. Like most great things, JavaScript started out on a rocky path. Users felt that the programming language was more of a UI glue only used by designers. No one realized this glue language would be one of the main reasons the internet flourished. So here we have a timeline of the European Computer Manufacturers Association. In 1997, Netscape realized that JavaScript would need to be managed and maintained properly, so they recruited ECMA. The ECMA's main purpose is to standardize computing. So in 1997, the first ECMA Script 1 came out, the first edition. And this listed rules for different programming languages, not just JavaScript. After 1999, ECMA Script 4, there was so much backlash and people not agreeing on things that it was never released. All right, I actually really like this quote by Jesse James. A good designer can create a design that accommodates all the constraints and still delivers an elegant, satisfying experience to the user. A great designer can go beyond this and create a design that demonstrates that some of those constraints weren't really there to begin with. In 2005, Jesse James Garrett released a paper that introduced AJAX. AJAX is a set of several technologies, including JavaScript, JSON, XML, HTML, and text files. AJAX can send and receive information in various formats. AJAX runs asynchronously. The publishing of this paper helped to solidify JavaScript's position in the programming world. So what is the difference between asynchronous and synchronous programming? Synchronous means the data can only be exchanged in real time. In other words, data can only be completed one at a time, only when the first section is completed. Asynchronous means you can perform a variety of tasks at the same time. You can perform tasks even if the previous tasks are incomplete. This method makes it so you are able to multitask by dealing with multiple requests simultaneously. Here are the top 10 Java frameworks and libraries. Node.js. The cool thing about Node is you can create a web application end-to-end just using JavaScript. React.js. React is used for making UIs. It allows you to create fast, powerful, reactive, and user-friendly web apps. Vue.js, an open source progressive JavaScript framework used to build interfaces, and it is similar to React. jQuery. This library is probably the most popular among users and can be used for event handling, animation, and manipulation of the HTML document. Backbone.js. It is a JavaScript library based on the model, view, and presenter design paradigm. Ember.js. This features templates and is another popular open source JavaScript web framework that focuses on the model and view pattern. Meteor.js, a full stack JavaScript platform to develop modern mobile and web applications. Angular. Google created the single web development framework. It was developed for both desktops and mobile web applications. Angular includes 4 data libraries and includes IDEs. Polymer.js. Polymer is an open source JavaScript library. Polymer is used to create custom reusable HTML elements. These elements are used to create maintainable web applications. And last is WebEx. WebEx has multi-widgets and is a JS UI framework that focuses on cross-platform web development. It includes complex widgets such as Kanban, File Manager, Spreadsheet, Scheduler, and Pivot, and can be integrated into any solution. So what is an application programming interface or an API? If you look at the picture, it says APIs let software applications communicate with other web sites and applications for additional functionality. An API allows 2 applications to talk to each other through an interface. An API is considered a messenger or an access point. It delivers requests to the provider, then delivers a response back to you. APIs are provided by browsers. Examples include DOM, AJAX, setTimeout, and much more. Here's some examples of different APIs. First is the web APIs. They can be accessed using the HTTP protocol and is a framework that assists you in creating and developing HTTP-based RESTful services. An open API, which is also called an external or public API. Internal API, these are APIs hidden from external users. Partner APIs, these are similar to open APIs, but feature restricted access. Composite APIs. These APIs allow developers to access several endpoints in one call. So what exactly is a call stack? One thread, one call stack, one thing at a time. A call stack is used for an interpreter. An example of this is the JavaScript interpreter in a web browser. It is a mechanism for an interpreter that remembers its place in a script with multiple functions. It also keeps track of what function is being run and which functions are used from within that function. JavaScript is a single-threaded programming language, which means it has a single call stack. This means it can only do one thing at a time. The call stack is considered a data structure that keeps track of our whereabouts in the program. A stack frame is the name of an entry in a call stack. Blowing the stack. Blowing the stack is when you reach the maximum call stack. This can happen very easily, especially if you are not testing your code extensively. If your code is recursive or repetitive, there's a possibility of overflow. Running your code on a single thread is a lot easier since you don't deal with complicated scenarios that come up when using a multi-threaded environment, but it can also be limiting. When things slow down, what happens? Since JavaScript has a single call stack, each stack must be run one at a time until the next stack frame is loaded. What happens when there are function calls in the call stack that take a large quantity of time to be processed? When this happens, the call stack is backed up with functions to execute. That means the browser is blocked and cannot do anything else, like rendering and running other code. If you want a clean, fluid UI in your app, this created a huge problem. Another issue is that when your browser processes too many tasks in the call stack, your page may become unresponsive. During this time, a browser will raise an error and ask you if you want the web pages to terminate. The answer to this is asynchronous callbacks. So what are asynchronous callbacks? An asynchronous callback makes sure that the lines before the callback are finished completely before the next line is loaded. It allows you to have control over the order that functions are run, the data passed between them, and it gives you the control to pass data, depending on the circumstance, to different functions. JavaScript engines, these are important. In order to run JavaScript, you need a JavaScript engine, which is an interpreter or a program that executes JavaScript code. The JavaScript engine can be used as a standard interpreter or a just-in-time compiler. A just-in-time compiler compiles JavaScript to bytecode in some form. So here are popular projects that implement a JavaScript engine. V8. V8 was developed by Google as an open source that is written in C++. Rhino. Rhino was developed entirely in Java. Rhino is managed by Mozilla Foundation and is an open source. SpiderMonkey, an engine used to power Netscape Navigator in the past. That was the very first JavaScript engine. Today, it powers Firefox. JavaScript Core, another open source engine that was marketed as Nitro and developed by Apple for Safari. KJS, KDE's engine, developed by Harry Porton and originally made for the KDE's Project Conquer web browser. Chakra. So Chakra consists of two different forms, JScript 9, which is used for Internet Explorer, and JavaScript, which is used for Microsoft Edge. Nashorn. Nashorn is an open source engine produced as a part of OpenJDK, produced by Oracle Java Languages and Tool Group. And last is JerryScript. This engine was designed to be lightweight and is used for the Internet of Things. The V8. The V8 increases the performance of JavaScript execution inside web browsers. It translates JavaScript code into a better and more effective machine code without the use of an interpreter by implementing a JIT, just-in-time compiler. It does not produce bytecode or any intermediate code. So how do we write optimal JavaScript? Here are a few steps. Always organize your order of object properties into the same order. This makes sure that your optimized code and hidden classes can be shared. To create dynamic properties, adding properties after organizing your code will force a hidden class change and will slow the methods down. To bypass this error, make sure all the object's properties are assigned in the constructor. When code is repetitive and uses the same method, it runs faster than using multiple methods only once. This is because of inline catching. Hash tables are sparse arrays that don't have all the elements inside of them. Deleting elements in arrays make the keys sparse. Arrays are on the other hand, are more expensive to access. So my JavaScript example is mobile applications. Mobile apps can stand alone without any web-based content. To accomplish this, developers use React Native and React.js. React Native is commonly used to build mobile applications. It does this by supporting the use of native features into hybrid apps. Hybrid applications include Uber, Instagram, Twitter, Gmail, Evernote, the Amazon Store app, and the Apple Store app. React.js, on the other hand, is used as the base for mobile application and builds user interfaces. The document object model, DOM, is an intricate part of React.js. Mobile applications continued. So the document object model, DOM, versus the virtual document object model, VDOM. DOM can be compared to an API for XML and HTML documents. DOM allows its users to manipulate and read the web page's content. VDOM, on the other hand, notifies the cache to save a virtual instance of the original DOM in the memory. It is not as intensive as DOM and is an exact clone. Developers can use VDOM to edit one part of the DOM at a time. This is quite effective in speeding up operations. So next, we're going to go over single-way data flow. Component cannot directly modify any properties, but can pass a callback function with help of which we can do modifications. In React, a set of immutable values are passed to the component's renderer as properties in its HTML tags. This complete process is known as properties flown down, actions flown up. Virtual document object model. React creates an in-memory data structure cache, which computes the changes made and then updates the browser. This allows a special feature which enables programmer to code as if whole page is rendered on each change, whereas React library only renders components which actually change. So single-way data flow versus two-way data flow. Single-way data flow, also called unidirectional data flow, is a common feature in React. Data can be transferred only one way from one part of an application to the others. Single-way data flow provides developers with better control of the data flow, unlike two-way data flow, where the values forwarded to a component are changeable. So here is my personal evaluation of JavaScript. What exactly drew me to JavaScript? I like that JavaScript is simple to learn. And if you already have some background in HTML and CSS, it won't be as hard to learn. It adds interactivity to your web page. It embeds directly onto your web page, which makes the coding easier. It is a client-side programming language, which means the server load is even faster. And it has the ability to implement complex features on a web page. Here are some strengths and weaknesses of JavaScript. Strengths. JavaScript makes it possible to have increased speeds. It is simple and easy to use. It is the most popular programming language. JavaScript is interoperable with other languages and applications. It has rich interfaces and extended functionality. Here are some weaknesses on JavaScript. Because JavaScript is a client-side programming language, client-side security is lacking. Not all browsers support JavaScript. There is a definite lack of debugging. Implemented functions differ across browsers. JavaScript will be absent in handheld and/or non-visual browsers. So, will I actually use this programming language? Since JavaScript is the most popular programming language, I will definitely use it in the future to add interactivity to my web pages. My goal is to take the next class after this one that focuses more in depth on JavaScript and how to use it. Once I finish the class, I plan to start freelancing and providing web design services and digital marketing services to my future clients. Here is a list of websites that offer courses for learning JavaScript. Codecademy, Udemy, Coursera, Pluralsight, freecodecamp.org, Code Combat, Code School, Mozilla Developer Network, and Code Mentor. So how exactly do you use JavaScript? Well, the cool thing about JavaScript that is all free. You don't have to pay anything to get started. You can enable JavaScript in Firefox, Google Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge, Windows 10, Internet Explorer, Android browsers, Safari for iOS, iPhones, iPads, and iPods. Enabling JavaScript makes sure that it can be used in implementing interactivity in your web pages. To use JavaScript, include your line of code within an HTML element using a script tag. Script tags are usually placed within the head and the body element. Built-in functions are used in between the opening and closing script tags. As I stated earlier in the presentation, JavaScript was created to be embedded directly into web pages. You can write JavaScript code in an HTML file using a simple text editor such as Notepad+. So, to learn more about JavaScript, visit https://www.javascript.com or www.w3schools.com/js/default.asp. And that is the end of my recording. I hope everybody has a great day.